Hello. So I told you I was gonna carve one of these cats completely. I have done two of them. Here's one. It's all in the folk art style. And here's the other. Like Siamese cats. Well, about the same. These are 4-inch cats, where this one is going to be 3 inches. So we'll just go ahead and get started. And I use, on these I've been using this gouge, and I have this a wooden table here where I can put some pressure. I can put my piece up here and I can cut. Oh, I got to get my glove on. Sorry. Okay. So it's nice with the gouge, instead of using a knife, to take off a lot of material. So I don't know how far I'm going to get. The ears will go back quite a ways, at least 1/4 inch from the face. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of detail with this. Get my carving knife for most of my detail work. And just carve back and just cut it. Mainly a stop cut. Then I'm going to cut all of his face off, so I'll have to redraw it. That's one thing that you have to do over and over again. I try to keep the center line, but his face is going to come off. And I'm just hogging off the wood here. This knife is extremely sharp. And the biggest thing with beginners is they don't want to take off enough wood and then make it look like it's square. So I want to make sure that I'm going to keep the nose out. So all this is coming off, except my nose. You can see I'm already down to my cut there. I have to cut in more. But you don't want to cut too much, or it's going to have to be glued on. There you go. And I am cutting with the grain. And on one side of the wood, when you cut with the grain, you got to go one way. On the other side, you cut with the wood. Like this, I can tell if I cut this, it would chip it out. So the best way is to come that way. So once you figure out the grain of the wood, it makes it a lot easier. You can see I have a lot of material to come off here, so it's a lot better using this gouge. You can really hog the material off, especially when it's 1 inch thick. You got a lot of material back here to take off. Let the chips fly. But I don't know if I'm going to get all this off or not. On this video, there's just a lot to do. But I can refer back to these too and say what I need to do here. Keep his tail on. And it's just going to be showing his toes there. Nothing super detailed. And you can see how his ears go. That's a fun little project. Round his face off. If I cover up some of it, I am sorry about the video. Use my iPhone. And you can see you gotta draw his tail back on, because that tail is gonna come up over his body here. You can see I got his face all cut off. So I need to draw that back on. Trying to keep the nose out best I can. And I'm using basswood like normal. Anything like this, basswood is the easiest. And this is the Christmas time, so guess what? All these are gifts once I get them done. Try and keep the tail on. I wanted to see the tail from the front, and I didn't want to make it where it actually would easily break off, like cats. If you know anything about cats, their tail tells you a lot about them. But I didn't want it where the tail would break, so that's why I made his tail close to his body like that and kind of curved in. So if some little kid gets a hold of this or whatever, they're not gonna drop it or whatever, I'm not worried about it breaking. And there we go. And it's definitely folk art style. So cutting his tail in here. And sorry if I come off camera, but when I get into it, I don't think about that, and I should be. But and then this is good too. Take off a lot of material. This is not a very deep gouge, but it's really nice for doing this. And extremely sharp. Not too bad. I do like to get off the edges when you're carving something little like this. It makes it better in your hand when you're carving. And then his feet are going to be here. His legs come up here. And all these cuts are pretty simplistic on this thing. There's hardly anything that's really difficult. But this one's definitely gonna, these are all stop cuts. So, but I do use my board quite a bit, pushing the piece up against there, because you can hold it with the board in your hand and use this and have more control. But I'm trying to show you guys the cuts, or guys, girls, whatever, whoever you may be. So, I'm gonna keep having to take his head back. I like to use the hand tools because it's not noisy. I don't like to use grinders because they're so noisy. I could use a grinder, but I choose not to. You can see how much wood I can take off of this knife. This knife is extremely sharp. I do have another one here. It's an old, you can use a lot of things for carving. This blade is extremely thin, and it's extremely sharp too. So it doesn't matter if you got an old knife, new knife, or whatever, but use what you got. I saw one guy carving a bear online. He had a huge big knife with a Scandinavian grind on it. Oh my land. But this thing's very old. But it will take off the wood. That's what you need. Something to take off the wood. Actually, if you go to Walmart, they got a yellow handled pocket knife. It's got D2 steel on it, and they only want like $8 for it. And it's like extremely cheap, and you could use something like that on this very easily. But this is not working out too bad either. I'm just roughing it out. And then for his little feet, it's just showing where his feet are. And I'm gonna put some claws in here. Then I can do that just with a V-gouge, just to give the idea that the cat has claws. Like I said, this is folk art. Then I usually always sign my pieces. Is that one signed? Yeah. I do that. And then I go from one thing to another. Keep rounding them off. It's not doing too bad. Keep coming back with the tail. So you can get the idea. And then I got his ears. They're going to be sloped further up. Like that. And around his head off. And the main thing is keep taking the wood off, making him look less square all the time. Because I got to round all this side material to make it look a lot more round. And his tail. As you can see, I like to go around the piece and sometimes I like to do the face first and then I do everything else, but it all depends on my mood. But I'm just cut that in there and then I'm on his tail. Trying to bring that out. Keep on the line. So all this material's got to come off. And you got to be careful, like the tail. If you cut a certain way, you could break that off really easy. This is that in the ears. You got to really watch that. So I'm trying to round it off as I go. It's not doing too bad for the time I've been on it. All right, face is gone again. I think I'm going to take his nose up a little bit higher than I had it. That's the nice thing before you get it cut in. And you want to make sure it's straight on the face. Have the center line. Some old guys told me that a long time ago. We'll do the eyes and then the nose will come down like that. I know this is probably the tricky part for most people, is doing the eyes and the mouth. So I guess I'll do that a little bit here to get that in, because the rest of it here is rounding it off and bringing it out. We'll do the face, we'll do the eyes. So this is kind of hairy. So I'm going from his nose, just taking my sharp knife around, and I'm cutting it in pretty good. I'd say 1/8 of an inch. Then I come in at an angle and then meet that line. And there you go. Then I come in over here, cut it in, and I want the bottom edge to show up more, so, and I want the inside of the eye to be more of a bevel, so I'm cutting into that line. And there we are. Simple as that. And sometimes I cut this in here with the eye. Right now I'm going to keep it that way. But another thing you can do is right here at the corner of this eye to show it depth and more shadow. You come in, do like a triangle, and just cut that out. And a lot of times I'll do the same thing over here. Is like come in here and have a little triangle. So it brings out the eye a little bit better. Now the nose, I'm just going to do a triangle. And I want some of this material to come off of here. I don't want to take too much off the eye area. So I'm coming down there like that. If I take off that mouth that I just put on there, I can always draw that back. But I want this nose to come out a little bit more. He's got a flat nose, I know. And people will say, oh, your nose is flat. Yeah, that's why it's folk art and not realistic art. So, and then he's got a tongue hanging out, or will have anyway. So that is the eye. Coming up here, clean that up a little bit. And to clean it up, you just cut your line again. And it brings out pretty decent. But I got a lot of material around this face. It's got to come off here because it's got to be all rounded. So I'm not going to do his mouth right there yet. I should go ahead and do the other side of his eye here. So I'm going to come down deep. And let's see, it's best to go this way. So I'm holding it with my thumb, bringing it around the knife, so I got control. And then I'm coming back to that place I just cut. Right there. And then come in on the bottom. Yeah. But again, I want to go angle down on that eyeball. Down to where I had it. Looks pretty good. And then over here I do the same thing. Come in on the angle. And then flip that out. And then on the edge here, have like a little triangle coming down there. Like that. And then there's always little things that you have to clean up. Not bad. Put his eyeball in there. Gives him character. There we go. Not too bad. Then I need to do the same thing on his nose over here. Just take that off, that material off, all the way up to his eyeball. I'd say this is the hardest part for me anyway. And of course the mouth is the mouth and the eyes really give him the personality. So I'm gonna get that right. So each one of these is like, that one there has got a little bit different personality than the other one because the mouth, the eyes, everything is a little bit different. but that's the fun part about it. Okay. So the mouth coming around. Give him sort of a smile. All right. I could use a V tool on that. As long as your V tool is extremely sharp. And then I come from the top. Okay. Then I have to do his tongue. The easiest way to do that is come in here and do a triangle again. Go down, go in, and then you take it in. Then you flip it out, and you don't worry about his bottom part of his tongue down here yet. And go down. Okay. So you can see that brings out his tongue. And then what I do here, let's go across the bottom. Boom. Try to round it off a little bit. There, not too bad. It's got a little personality now. He definitely looks different than the others, you can tell. A little bit. Similar. Then I keep going back and touching them up. So that's some of the hardest parts of the carving. But if you're doing one of these, just make sure you're rounding everything off, because you can see I got a lot of work to do on this thing. That's a lot of rounding. And that's the tail. I got all this material here. It's got to come off. I mean, with this knife, it's not too bad. But what I'm telling you about the grain, if I would come down and pull this, it would have a big chunk come off there. I need to, if you feel that, you got to just go back the other way. Once you understand how the grain works, and make your life a lot easier if you're wood carving basswood anyway. Every wood's different. And with a small piece like this, it's kind of hard to hold on to it. And see, when the wood curves and the grain is different, you can come down on it and it won't break out. So the grain can be hairy. And then I'm just rounding his head off. So it's not going to take too much more to get this thing done. Yeah, those two cats over there are for my two daughters. And then my wife said, "Oh, I want a little one for the Christmas tree." I'm like, "Okay, hon, no problem." So that's what we're doing. This one's for the Christmas tree. And what I usually do is get a brass eyelet, hand drill in his head, put that in, and then put a ribbon or whatever on to put it on the Christmas tree. So this cat is my design, totally. I just sit down and drew it up. I don't like taking other people's designs, but I do have a PDF. If people are interested in this little cat, I can get it to you. I just have to get your email or give you a number or something. I can put that down at the bottom after I go live, after it's done. But it's a fun little project. Like I said, there's nothing super hard about it. It's a folk art style. This little tail here, I have to just go at it a little bit at a time. I want to round it off. You can tell it's really square, and you can't really take a lot of material off at a time. So I'm like a little bit at a time on that. When you got something sticking out like that, otherwise you're gonna snap it off, which wouldn't be fun, but we can get around it and glue it back on and carve it again. Anyway, I don't like to do that. So I want to make my tail look like it's round too, so I come at an angle around here because I don't want it to look like it's flat. So I'm coming at an angle. I mean, I can go in here with my V tool and define that line like that, and then I can take my knife to that line here. But this tail has got to get more round. That's what I'm saying, especially for beginners. You guys, if you're a beginner, and I used to leave stuff square because I was afraid to take off material. So you just got to keep making it round. So just bring in the line, cut to the line. And I'm gonna cut down here. Yeah, I had an interesting story about my wood carvings. My grandchild, she's 11 years old, she called me up the other day, and she knows I wood carve. And she goes, Grandpa, she goes, there's a guy on there that does woodworking. I've been watching him. I'm like, oh, yeah? She goes, yeah. I'm like, oh, that's neat. He goes, he does wood carving. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I said, I got videos on YouTube too. And she's just learning that. And she goes, oh, what's your name? And I said, would you know it? She goes, that's who I've been watching. So she just found out I had all these videos on. And she didn't really know it. She's on YouTube all the time, so that's kind of funny. But she goes, I want to watch all of them. I'm like, oh, go for it. Anyway, back to the carving. You can see, well, one thing on this too, this tail or something like it, you want to try to do an undercut under there. So not only is it flat here, but you can see here I did like an undercut under it, and it brings it out even more. So you cut in and you go down, and then if I come in here and pop that out of there, boom, I got an undercut there, which is nice. It makes it look more round. You can see that. So that's kind of fun. There we go. Well, 37 minutes on carving this thing. I don't think it's too bad. Got the face. Got more to do right here on this tail. And round them off. But he's pretty good. Then I got to paint him. I usually use acrylics and to paint everything. I have water-based oils, but I never tried it on woodworking. I maybe should try it sometime. But like I say, still have to keep round them off. Just need a sharp knife. It took me a long time to learn how to sharpen a knife, but once you know it, I used to use razor knives in the beginning because I couldn't sharpen a knife, but whatever it takes. This is one of the cuts that I do the most, is that you're pulling to your finger, but you're not getting close. That's the plan anyway. And I want to get all my saw mark lines off. I roughed this guy out on the bandsaw. So there you go. That tail's got to get cleaned up here. Okay. Well, I think you got the idea what this guy looks like. Just have a little bit more here. Clean up. Not bad. You can see how his tail looks. Getting there. Yeah. I don't think he's too bad. It's fun. With that, I think thanks for stopping by, looking at the live video. You guys have a nice evening. There it is, the cat. Along with my other cats. Whoa. 3 cats. And they all look a little different, but a little same, but that's it. You guys have a nice evening. Thank you.